Hello, this is Matthew Chan. Welcome to the new episode of The Success Formula, and I'm here with Ray Williams. And in this episode, we're going to talk about breaking the bad habits. Now, before I turn it over to Ray, I have to give accolades to Ray. Ray always chooses the great topics, and I really never know what he's going to present, which is kind of intentionally done that way, so there's some spontaneity. But, I mean, when he emailed this to me, I was like, oh, this is great. I cannot wait to hear what Ray says. So anyway, Ray, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Matthew. Good to see you again and to have another segment. Yeah, I was trying to keep you in suspense, so you never know what we're going to talk about till the last minute.
Well, I really like it. I mean, I really like it because it's like a little gift. I never know what I'm going to get with you every week. And you always choose great topics because they're so relevant to me. So what can I tell you?
That's great. Well, the one this week's going to be kind of interesting, I think, for a lot of people because try and find somebody on this planet that doesn't have bad habits. We all have them, right?
Right.
So, one of the things I want to talk about is the fact that, first of all, it's very normal to have bad habits. We all have them. We all develop them really early in life. And so let me use some examples of bad habits, what I'm talking about. Biting your nails.
Okay.
Picking your nose.
Okay.
Scratching your head or somewhere else that we can't mention on the show.
Okay.
Compulsive spending. Constantly clearing your throat. Like stuff like that.
Okay.
Whenever it's repetitive behavior that actually doesn't serve a purpose, it's a habit. It's a bad habit.
Okay.
We also have good habits, too. So good habits can be saying something complimentary to somebody, opening the door for them, saying something in a polite way, showing gratitude, showing kindness. Those can all be habits, too. It's the bad ones that get us into trouble.
Right. Well, I was thinking like brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth are very basic good habits, too.
Exactly. So what I want to talk about is the bad ones. In the most extreme form, Matthew, bad habits can become addictions. So, for example, you can develop a bad habit for smoking, or drinking, or multiple sex partners that gets out of control. All of those things start out as bad habits, and then they become addictions where you can't stop doing it. But it's essentially a progressive thing. So probably one of the first things people want to find out is, what are your bad habits? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you already know what a couple of them are.
We all
have terrible sleeping habits.
Right.
You already knew that one from the cruise.
Yeah, exactly. And, you'll ask my wife, Diane, well, what's Ray's bad habits? Well, he can snore once in a while. So they can be physical, but they can be emotional. It can be just, any kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The more we can kind of eradicate bad habits out of our life, the better off we are. The problem becomes it's really, really hard to do it. So
yes, it is.
I want to use an example of my youngest son, and I'm sure he'll forgive me here. Is he had a bad habit of constantly biting his nails. And, you've probably seen lots of people who do that.
Yeah, you see them.
Yeah, and he tried everything to stop himself because he didn't want to do it. But what he found was when he was in a situation where there's a bit of tension, he was getting anxious about something, he started biting his nails.
Okay.
And when you pointed it out to him, the response was, you know what? I didn't realize I was doing it.
That's interesting.
So what happens, Matthew, is that a lot of bad habits are unconscious. You're not even conscious of the fact that you're doing it until someone points it out.
And then, of course, habits aren't unconscious, are they?
Right, exactly. And my exact point is that all habits are unconscious, the good ones and the bad ones.
Okay.
So this is what happens in your brain. Is that very early you develop a behavior pattern of doing things in a certain way, and your brain wants to make that into a memory so that you don't have to think about how do I do that?
Right.
So a good example is riding your bike. When you get on your bike, do you think about how do I ride this bike every time you do it?
Not anymore. When I was 7 years old, I did.
Exactly.
Yeah, but not anymore.
So you've developed a memory, which then becomes a habit of how to ride the bike without even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what your brain wants to do is put as much stuff into unconscious or automatic memory as possible so that you don't have to think about doing it. That's where your habits goes into those memories. And then your brain says, I know what to do now. Bite those nails.
Well, it sounds like you're kind of implying that, the way we were designed is that to try to push some of this into autopilot. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
You're right on target, Matthew. The way in which our brains are designed is to put as much stuff into your unconscious mind as possible.
I never knew that.
And here's the reason why. Your conscious mind, which is mostly the processes that go on in this part of your brain in the front, it's called the prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
It has a limited capacity to deal with a certain number of complex things at a given time. Usually a maximum of what scientists say, 7 things.
What are those 7?
Doesn't matter what they are. They can be anything you're dealing with. 7 things you're dealing with at work. It could be a combination of personal and but 7 things simultaneously that you can consciously be working on at a given time. That's it.
Really? That many, huh? I never thought that we could handle that many things, to be honest with you.
Now,
I feel like I can only handle 2 or 3, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you hit the right point there. For most people, you can do 2 or 3 efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
7 is the maximum you can do reasonably well.
I got you.
That's why multitasking is a myth. Sure, you can do a bunch of things consciously, right, at a given time, but your efficiency starts to go down.
Dramatically, I would say.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is put as many things into your unconscious mind, which is handled automatically as possible, and only have a couple things that you're thinking about consciously in your conscious mind.
And that's where the habits come in. Hopefully
exactly.
Good ones, right? Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. So here's what the problem is.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so here's the problem is. The bad habits go into that unconscious mind and you're not conscious of doing it, and you just repeat it over and over again. Every time you repeat the bad habit, just like every time you repeat the good habit, you get better and better at it.
It gets reinforced.
It gets reinforced. That neural path memory in your brain gets thicker and bigger all the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's hard to break bad habits. So what I'm going to try and do now for a couple minutes here is talk about what the research says about what you can do to break a bad habit, and leaves the listeners with some suggestions and strategies on how to do that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, before you get into that, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you say that there are certain habits that are more ingrained than others?
Yes, and I think biting your nails or picking your nails may be annoying to people, but they're not necessarily harmful to you.
Yes.
It may irritate people, and it is rude, and when those habits become consistently being sarcastic to somebody, everything they say is to give a sarcastic response, or suddenly you like to have your afternoon drink or your evening drink when you come home from work, and then it becomes 2 drinks, and then 3 drinks, and then a half a bottle.
Wow, you're good at this. Okay. I've seen this.
Yeah. Now it becomes a dangerous bad habit that's producing a lot of harm. That's where it becomes a problem.
But you don't think it's conscious, huh? I mean, when you pick up that drink, it's sort of, you're awake.
No? Yeah, you are and you aren't. What's happened is that you unconsciously go for the glass or go for the cigarette or say a certain thing or do a certain thing without thinking, I'm going to do this now. You don't think in advance. You just do it. Yeah.
Well, I guess you're leading up to how do we break this cycle, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So I want to, first of all, make that point about the fact that bad habits are just like good habits.
Yes.
And they're unconscious. They're in your memory, and that's why it's so easy to do them. And so that also makes it hard to break them.
I see.
So understand one thing. Once you have a memory pattern, which becomes a habit, which is in your brain, it never goes away. It's there for life.
What? Come on. Forever? For life?
Unless we perform surgery on that part of your brain and remove it.
Surely we've got some other ways of at least dealing with it.
Yes, there are other ways. But I wanted to make this point is that once you've got a particular habit, which is a memory and a neural pathway that's being developed in your brain, it's there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's always there. The trick is, do you activate it or not? Do you go to that memory and activate that memory, or don't you? So there are ways to not activate the memory, but thinking that it somehow disappears into thin air, don't think that at all.
Wow. I don't know whether I'm actually happy to hear this or not, Ray.
Well, why do you think, Matthew, that smokers can, quit smoking, and they could actually quit smoking for any period of time, and then suddenly, even years later, they can pick it up just in a snap of a finger?
Now that you bring that example up, I guess that kind of ties into alcoholism too. They say that, those guys, I can't really relate to it, but those guys cannot drink ever again. I mean, they don't have any middle ground. And it sounds very similar to what you're talking about.
So that memory of what it's like, that impulse, that pathway, that's what I call the default pattern, is going to be always there. It's a matter of whether you activate it or not.
Right.
So so here are the key things in order to make sure you don't activate that default habit. So number one, replace a bad habit with a good one.
Replacing it.
Yeah, you replace it with something else that's good. One of the reasons that you do a bad habit, why would you keep doing something that's harmful for you if it didn't bring you some kind of reward?
That is true. There's got to be some gratification from it.
Right. So even with bad habits like picking your nose or biting your nails or, whatever it happens to be, there's a reward in there somewhere. There's something you're getting out of that that's rewarding you.
I guess it feels good.
It feels good. Right. That's why people do it. Okay. So you have to then, if you're going to replace that bad habit with a good habit, you have to have a good habit that brings you a reward that's equal to or better than the bad one.
Okay. So are we going to use an extreme example or sort of a example?
We can use an example of biting the nails, because I use that with my son.
Okay.
So one of the things he would be constantly doing is looking at his nails and then putting them in his mouth and biting them, right? So I say, okay, what could he do associated with his nails that would be a good habit that he could replace it with that is not so far removed? So for me to say to him, okay, every time you have a desire to bite your nail, get up and drive your car and go to the beach and look at the waves coming in. That's too long.
Yeah, that's too involved. I thought you were going to say go look at some pretty girls or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's too involved, and it takes too long. He's got to be something immediate.
Okay.
So what I did with him, I said, okay, instead, every time you do that, I gave him a little nail package, which had a nail clipper, a file, all the stuff you would do if you went to get a manicure.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I said, okay, keep this in your pocket. It was small enough you keep it in his pocket. So every time he had the impulse to bite his nails now, he pulled out the little thing and he started working on his nails, just like he was doing a manicure instead.
Okay.
So there is a positive thing that he could do really quickly that's associated with his nails that replaced the negative thing that had a beneficial result. His nails now look pretty good instead of being all ragged because they were being bitten.
Well, what about those extreme cases where people, they have this habit, but it's already short? There's nothing more to cut. I mean, or is that just too extreme for our conversation?
No, that's fine. In the package there's also like a nail hardener that he could put on there, just a clear.
Okay.
Right, just a clear nail kind of gel that he would put on the surface to smooth it out. A little little file to file the surface instead of the edges, so he could still do some stuff there.
I got you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
So there's an example where he started grooming his nails instead of biting them as a substitute positive habit he could have. And through time, he would just consistently do that. And then eventually, he actually really enjoyed that more than the biting, and he stopped biting his nails.
Okay. So was the habit fairly frequent, would you say?
He would be biting his nails almost all the time.
But you're saying that he replaced the behavior, so did he do the nails just as frequently?
Yes. And then he would have to do it less and less through time because the impulse would not be so great.
Okay. All right.
So it was addressing the initial negative impulse from the bad habit he had to address right away. Mm-hmm. And through time, that impulse got less and less and less.
Okay. Do you have another example where you have it?
Yeah. Another example is overeating.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, in the U.S., there's definitely an epidemic of that.
Yeah. According to the Center for Disease Control, 34% of the American public is obese.
Oh, yeah.
And 32% is overweight. That's almost 70% that's either overweight or obese.
You know too much about this stuff, Ray. It's very upsetting to know these things.
So let's take the bad habit of overeating, because there's one perfect example. So what do you do? What do you do to replace that desire to reach for usually starchy, fattening foods?
Yeah.
What habit could you take to replace that with that still gives you some satisfaction?
Drink a beverage? I don't know. Drink a beverage?
Drink a beverage.
Lesser consequence. But I don't know if it would be just as effective. I mean, drinking water is not more pleasurable.
No.
But maybe coffee? I don't know.
Now, coffee is a stimulant. You might want to stay away from that.
Okay.
So one of the things that happens is you need to send a message to your stomach that you're full, right? You don't need food. All right, so that deals with the physical part of it. So if your stomach thinks it's full, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to reach for food. So the good habit you can go with is to reach for fiber in a concentrated dosage. You can get these fiber tablets at any.
Oh, is that right? Fiber makes you feel full?
Fiber makes you feel full.
I never knew that. I should try that.
So you can take it in natural form, in a food, or you can take it in pill form. And you just take a bunch of fiber when you're really, really hungry with a bunch of water. Your stomach feels like it is totally full, and it's not hungry.
Gosh, I'm thinking you might actually lose weight along the way. Not just maintaining weight. I mean, I'd be happy to maintain, but gosh.
You would lose weight. Yeah.
Yay. Okay. That's good. I think a lot of people.
You don't need a diet. So then you can go ahead and eat whatever you want to eat. Just what's going to happen is you're going to eat a lot less.
Oh, I like that. I really. I got to try that. You make me want to go buy some fiber now and try it out.
Yeah. So there's a very, very simple thing. Now you can combine with that, add to that. Every time you feel full, hey, you know what? I'm going to take some of this fiber and I'm going to go for a walk as well. So add some exercise to it. Now you're doing two things that are beneficial for you because you're going to make you feel good. You're going to get endorphins in your body that replace that desire to have food that you really don't need and contributes to being overweight.
Well, you know, Americans have a growing tendency to be sedentary. So,
yes. Yeah,
I mean, exactly. I don't think there's going to be a natural instinct to go up and walk, though, Ray.
No, but it's a natural thing to be able to say, you know what, I'm just going to take some fiber and I'm going to, and you limit it to small steps. I'm going to do, I'm just going to take three circular walks around the block. That's all.
Okay.
Don't make it a big thing. It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to run for 10K.
Okay. All right.
If you take 10,000 steps per day, that's all. 10,000 steps per day, you reduce the likelihood of heart attack through overweight by 40%.
10,000 sounds like a big number, I got to tell you.
It isn't.
Okay.
So here you can keep a pedometer. You can hook it onto your belt and keep track. Now they have an app for the iPhone that measures the number of steps you take.
Really?
Sure.
Okay. All right. This is very interesting. All right, keep going. Ray.
So there's very simple things you can do. There's an example of, the food problem is a bad habit. Simple things you can do that don't involve getting into complex diets. Most diets do not work. In fact, people who are on diets end up putting on more weight.
I have heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah.
They can't keep it off for long. I mean, Oprah is like a big example of that. She couldn't keep the weight off over the years.
Because you're not replacing it with something else that's giving you some positive feedback, right?
Okay. Well, I don't want to dwell on it, but this whole fiber idea is almost too simple.
Many solutions are very simple, and we avoid them. Instead, get very complex things that's really hard for the brain to deal with. Because you think about the alternative is, okay, I have a problem with eating too much. Mm-hmm. It's a bad habit. So my solution is I'm going to go on a diet, starve my body. My body's going to say, great, store fat.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you finally do go for it, you start hoarding it in like you've never eaten before. It's bad. Yes.
That's why the weight comes back.
Gotcha.
So strategy number 1 is replace a bad habit with a good one. Strategy number 2 is every time you do something in the form of exercise, doesn't matter what the habit is, you increase endorphins in your brain and you have a good feeling in your brain.
I see.
And you have less of an inclination to bite your nails, smoke a cigarette, take a drink, eat food. So exercise in and of itself is a good way to use as a good habit to replace any bad habit, any kind of bad habit. Just do exercise.
Okay.
The number 1 thing that increases your brain function is exercise.
I gotcha. All right. Well, you're a big believer in that. I can tell.
Absolutely.